The chamber stretched 4 kilometers in every direction, its walls made of crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. 47 different species sat in their designated sections, each representative watching the center stage where humanity's fate would be decided. Captain Minho stood alone in the middle of the vast floor, his dark uniform a stark contrast against the glowing surroundings. He kept his face calm, but his hands were clenched behind his back. Ambassador Velthor of the Kryn Empire rose from his seat. His tall frame cast long shadows across the floor as he activated the holographic display. Images of Earth appeared in the air, showing wars, burning forests, polluted oceans, and nuclear explosions. The gathered aliens murmured among themselves as the images shifted to show human ships aggressively mining asteroids and establishing military bases throughout their solar system. "Members of the Council," Velthar began, his voice echoing through translators, "humanity has shown us who they truly are. In just 2 centuries since achieving spaceflight, they have weaponized their entire star system. They fight amongst themselves constantly. They destroy their own planet for resources. They are aggressive, unpredictable, and dangerous." Minho wanted to speak, to defend his species. But Council protocols forbade interruption during the presentation of evidence. He could only watch as Velthor displayed carefully edited clips of human history, each one designed to make humanity look like monsters waiting to be unleashed on the galaxy. Lieutenant Guwu sat in the observation gallery, watching her captain stand alone against the entire galactic community. She gripped the railing in front of her, her knuckles turning white. She had prepared detailed reports showing humanity's achievements. Their art, their compassion, their rapid technological advancement, none of it mattered now. The Council had already made up their minds before this session even began. "We have seen this pattern before," Velthar continued. "Species that expand too quickly, that value conquest over cooperation, that cannot control their violent impulses. If we allow humanity to join us, if we share our faster-than-light technology with them, they will spread like a plague across the galaxy. We cannot take that risk." The Council members nodded in agreement. Some species had genuine concerns about human aggression. Others simply feared competition. The Kryn Empire, in particular, had dominated galactic politics for 3,000 years. They did not want a young, dynamic species challenging their authority. Dr. Yunji watched the proceedings from Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, where she had spent the last 5 years studying alien microorganisms in the ice. She sat in her laboratory, surrounded by equipment that had taken her career to build, and watched as her life's work was about to be destroyed. If the Council voted for exile, she would have to abandon everything. All human colonies and research stations beyond Earth would be forcibly evacuated. The vote began. One by one, the species cast their decision. Some hesitated. A few smaller species abstained, unwilling to condemn humanity, but too afraid to oppose the Kryn Empire. But the majority voted yes. 41 species agreed that humanity should be exiled from galactic society. When the final count appeared on the displays, Velthor smiled. "The Council has spoken. Humanity is hereby forbidden from leaving their solar system. A quantum barrier will be erected around Sol, preventing any faster-than-light travel in or out. All human presence beyond this barrier must be removed within 30 days. Minho finally stepped forward. "You are making a mistake." "We are preventing one," Velthar replied coldly. "We came here in peace. We asked only to learn, to trade, to be part of something greater than ourselves. And you condemn us for our past while ignoring your own histories? Every species in this room has fought wars. Every species has made mistakes. But we grew past them before we reached the stars." A representative from the Ashen Coalition interjected. "You brought your wars with you into space?" "Because we are young," Minho said, his voice rising with passion. "Give us time. Give us a chance to prove we can be better." "Time is precisely what we will not give you," Velthar said. "Your species advances too quickly. In another century, you might develop weapons that threaten us all. We will not allow that possibility." Gu could not stay silent any longer. She activated her communicator from the gallery, breaking protocol. "You fear us because we are different. because we do not fit into your comfortable, predictable galaxy. You have grown complacent in your power, and we remind you that change is possible. Security forces moved toward her position, but Minho held up his hand. She is right, and you know it. You do not exile us out of concern for the galaxy. You exile us out of fear for yourselves. Velthar's expression hardened. This session is concluded. The barrier will activate in 72 hours. Remove your people from beyond Sol, or they will be removed for you. The council chamber emptied quickly. Minho stood alone for a long moment, staring at the empty seats. Giwu made her way down to him, expecting to find him angry or defeated. Instead, his eyes held something else entirely. Determination. Send a message to all human colonies and stations, Minho said quietly. Everyone comes home. No one gets left behind. The next 30 days were chaos. Thousands of humans scrambled to pack years of work into cargo ships. Dr. Yunji watched as alien peacekeepers dismantled her laboratory, cataloging every piece of equipment and every sample. They were polite, but firm. Everything humanity had learned from the galaxy was being taken away. On Mars, Engineer Hyunwoo supervised the shutdown of mining operations that had taken a decade to establish. On Titan, families packed their belongings and said goodbye to homes they had built with their own hands. Throughout the solar system, humanity was being called back to Earth, back to the cage the galaxy had built for them. The quantum barrier began forming on the outer edge of the solar system. It looked like a shimmer in space, barely visible, except when stars disappeared behind it. Scientists studied it frantically, trying to understand the technology. But the Council had used techniques far beyond human understanding. As the last transport ships crossed back into Sol, Minho sent one final transmission to the Galactic Council. His message was brief, his tone calm, but carrying an undercurrent of something that made Velthor uneasy when he heard it. You have made your choice. We will make ours. You think this barrier makes you safe from us? You are wrong. You have not contained a threat. You have created one. Every species needs an enemy to unite against, a challenge to overcome, a reason to push beyond their limits. Thank you for giving us ours. The transmission ended. The barrier sealed completely, cutting humanity off from the stars they had only just begun to explore. On Earth, in military command centers and research facilities, in universities and corporate headquarters, humans began to plan. They had been given a gift, though the Council did not realize it yet. Time, isolation, and a burning desire to prove the galaxy wrong. Velthor dismissed Minho's words as empty bravado. In the comfort of the Nexus Station, surrounded by civilizations that had existed for millennia, he could not imagine how a species trapped in a single star system could ever pose a threat. He would learn. They all would. But by then, it would be far too late. 20 years had passed since the barrier went up. The Galactic Council expected humanity to collapse within a decade, fighting among themselves for dwindling resources. They were wrong about everything. Dr. Yunji stood in the observation deck of the Mars Orbital Station, watching thousands of ships move through the construction yards below. She was 62 years old now, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes burned with the same intensity they had when the aliens dismantled her laboratory on Europa. She had rebuilt everything they took from her, and then built things they could never imagine. Director, the new reactor design is ready for testing, a young engineer said behind her. Yonji turned to see Hunwoo, now chief of energy systems for the entire solar system. He had been just a mining supervisor when the exile began. Now he was revolutionizing human power generation. Show me, Yonji said. They walked through corridors filled with activity. The station housed 50,000 people, all working on projects that would have seemed impossible 2 decades ago. Without access to alien technology, humanity had been forced to innovate. The results were spectacular. Hyunwoo brought her to a sealed laboratory where a reactor the size of a car hummed quietly. We call it the Prometheus core. It generates 40% more energy than the best Kryn Empire reactors, according to the data we captured before the exile. And it is completely stable. How many can we build? Hunji asked. We have factories on Mars, Luna, and Earth. We can produce 500 per month starting next quarter. Every ship, every station, every colony will have power to spare. Yunji smiled. The galaxy had tried to strangle humanity by cutting them off from trade and technology. Instead, they had given humanity the motivation to surpass them on Earth. Admiral Minho reviewed tactical reports in the Solar Defense Command. The 12 ships he had commanded during the exile had grown into a fleet of 4,000 vessels. They were not the largest ships in the galaxy, but they were fast, heavily armed, and crewed by people who had spent their entire adult lives preparing for the day the barrier came down. Lieutenant Ji Woo, now a commander, entered his office carrying data tablets. The new pilots are ready. Taiyang's squadron achieved perfect scores in every simulation. Minho nodded. Taiyang was 23 years old, born the year after the exile began. He had never known the galaxy beyond Sol, never met an alien, never seen a world beyond human space. But he could fly better than anyone Minho had ever trained. His entire generation was like that, sharp and hungry and focused on a single goal, proving the galaxy wrong about humanity. "How many squadrons are ready for deployment?" Minho asked. 240, sir. Another 100 in advanced training. If the barrier falls tomorrow, we can field 12,000 fighters within an hour. Minho remembered standing alone in the council chamber, remembered the contempt in Velthor's voice. The Kryn thought humanity would fade into irrelevance. They thought wrong. Across the solar system, in a research facility hidden in the asteroid belt, Dr. Sumin made a breakthrough that would change everything. She had been studying the quantum barrier for 15 years, trying to understand the physics behind it. While she could not break through it, she had learned to manipulate similar quantum effects on a smaller scale. "It works," she shouted to her team. On the display in front of her, a small probe disappeared from one point in space and reappeared at another, thousands of kilometers away, without traveling the distance between. She had created the first human-made wormhole. Within months, Suman's wormhole network connected every major installation in the solar system. Ships could jump from Earth to Neptune in minutes instead of weeks. The Sol system became a web of instant transportation, allowing resources and military forces to move with unprecedented speed. But the most important discovery came from Dr. Yuna, a physicist who had been obsessed with the barrier itself. While everyone else tried to break through it or understand it, Yuna asked a different question. Could they use it? The barrier was not just a wall. It was a massive energy field, constantly powered by technology the Council had planted at the edge of the solar system. Yuna figured out how to tap into that power. She built collectors that siphoned energy from the barrier itself, turning humanity's prison into an infinite power source. "They built a cage," Yuna explained to Yunji during a presentation. "But they also gave us the key to unlimited energy. Every day the barrier stands. It generates enough power to fuel our entire civilization 10 times over. We just had to learn how to access it." The implications were staggering. With unlimited energy, humanity could build on a scale previously impossible. Shipyards expanded. Cities grew on Mars and Luna, massive terraforming. Projects began on Venus. The solar system transformed from a collection of isolated colonies into an interconnected industrial powerhouse. Young strategist Do Yan worked in the tactical planning division, designing battle scenarios for conflicts that had not happened yet. He had studied every alien species in the Council, learning their military doctrines, their technologies, their weaknesses. He was 24 years old and had never left Earth, but he could tell you exactly how to defeat a Kryn battle fleet. "They fight with honor codes," Doyen explained to a room full of officers. "They announce their attacks. They give enemies time to surrender. They follow ancient traditions that make them predictable. We do not have those traditions. We have adaptability." Navigator Hannah, sitting in the front row, raised her hand. "What if they adapt to our tactics?" "Then we adapt faster," Doyen replied. "That is our advantage. We are not bound by thousands of years of tradition. We can change our entire strategy in days if needed. They cannot." Hannah was one of the best navigators in the fleet, despite being only 22 years old. She had grown up listening to stories about the exile, about the day the galaxy turned its back on humanity. Like everyone in her generation, she carried a quiet anger, determination to show the Council what they had created by isolating humanity. On Luna, a massive monument had been constructed. Black stone walls stretched for hundreds of meters, covered in names. Every human who had died during the forced evacuation was listed there. Scientists who suffered heart attacks while watching their life's work destroyed. Children who died in overcrowded transport ships. Elderly colonists who could not survive the stress of leaving homes they had built with their own hands. Tens of thousands of names. Tens of thousands of reasons why humanity would never forgive or forget what the Amet Council had done. Minho visited the monument every year on the anniversary of the exile. He would stand there for hours, reading names, remembering faces. Giwu often joined him. They did not speak. They did not need to. The name said everything. "They think we are the threat," Jiwoo said one year, breaking the silence. "We are," Minho replied. "Just not in the way they imagine." By the 20th year of the exile, the transformation was complete. The Sol system had become a fortress, a factory, and a training ground all at once. Every human in space had a role to play. Engineers like Hyunwoo built the machines. Scientists like Sumin and Yuna developed the technology. Pilots like Taiyang trained for war. Strategists like Doyan planned for every possibility. And behind it all, people like Yunji and Minho guided humanity with a single vision. When the barrier came down, the galaxy would see what they had created. Not a species that had been broken by isolation, but one that had been forged by it. In the council chambers on Nexus Station. Far beyond the barrier, the Kryn Empire prepared for war with the Ashen Coalition. Tensions had been building for years, over mining rights and disputed territories. Neither side believed the conflict would spread beyond their regions. Neither side remembered the humans trapped in Sol. Velthar, now senior advisor to the Kryn Emperor, occasionally thought about the exile. In quiet moments, he wondered if humanity had survived or if they had destroyed themselves as he predicted. He assumed they had either gone extinct or reverted to primitive infighting. He had no idea that beyond the barrier, 4,000 warships waited in perfect formation. That 50,000 scientists worked day and night on weapons and technology. That an entire generation had grown up with one purpose. To prove the Galactic Council wrong, the barrier still shimmered at the edge of the solar system, containing humanity within their prison. But inside that prison, something magnificent and terrifying had been built, and soon, very soon, the galaxy would see it. The war between the Kryn Empire and the Ashen Coalition started over a mining station. A small dispute over territorial rights in a system nobody cared about. Within 3 months, 17 species had been pulled into the conflict. Ancient alliances were activated. Old grudges resurfaced. The galaxy burned. Velthar sat in the Kryn War room, watching tactical displays show red zones spreading across multiple sectors. The Ashen had more ships than intelligence reports suggested. The Kryn fleets, once considered invincible, were being pushed back on 3 fronts. "We need reinforcements," General Kalth said, his forearms gesturing at the displays. "Our shipyards cannot produce vessels fast enough to replace our losses." "What about the reserve species?" another officer suggested. "The client states who owe us military service?" Velthor's eyes narrowed as an idea formed. "What about the humans?" The room fell silent. Finally, Kalth spoke. "The exiled species? They have been isolated for 25 years. They are probably extinct or regressed to pre-industrial levels. Or desperate enough to help us in exchange for readmission to the galactic community," Velthor countered. "If they survived, they will be grateful for any opportunity to end their isolation. We can offer them technology, trade rights, everything they lost. In return, they provide ships and soldiers." The council convened in emergency session. The war was going badly for everyone involved. Resources were depleted. Civilian populations were suffering. A quick influx of fresh troops could tip the balance. The vote to lower the barrier and contact humanity passed with 38 species in favor. The few who remembered Minho's warning were dismissed as paranoid. Prepare a diplomatic mission, Velthar ordered. Generous terms. Make them feel like we are doing them a favor. Commander Seogen led the Council peacekeeping force that approached the barrier. His ships carried the most advanced sensors the Kryn could provide. As the barrier began to dissolve, those sensors immediately went haywire. Sir, we are detecting thousands of quantum signatures, his sensor operator reported, voice shaking. No, tens of thousands. The entire solar system is lit up like a star. That is impossible, Seogen said. The humans had 12 ships when we exiled them. Must be a sensor malfunction. But it was not a malfunction. As the barrier faded completely, Seogen's fleet found itself facing something that should not exist. 4,000 warships hung in perfect formation at the edge of the solar system. As if they had been waiting for this exact moment, at the center of the formation was the Terran flagship Defiance. Admiral Minho stood on the bridge. Older now, but with the same iron will he had carried into the council chamber 25 years ago. Ji-Woo stood beside him as his second-in-command. They lowered the barrier, Ji-Woo said quietly. Just like Do-Yan predicted. Send the welcome message, Minho ordered. Seogen's communication systems activated without his permission. Somehow the humans had already hacked into his ships. Networks. Minho's face appeared on every display in the council fleet. Commander Seogen, of the Kryn Peacekeeping Force, Minho said, his voice calm and measured. You are in human territory. State your purpose. Seogen tried to project authority, but he was deeply unsettled by the massive fleet in front of him. I bring an offer from the Galactic Council. The current war requires additional forces. In exchange for your assistance, the Council is willing to consider ending humanity's exile and restoring your rights. Minho was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his words were broadcast not just to Seogen's fleet, but across every Council communication channel simultaneously. Somehow, the humans had tapped into the entire galactic network. Let me be clear, Commander. You do not understand the situation. You are not offering us a chance to rejoin your failing civilization. We are deciding whether to let you survive. In the council chambers on Nexus Station, Velthar watched the transmission with growing horror. The human ships began moving, and they moved in ways that should not be possible. They blinked in and out of existence, jumping through Suman's wormhole network with precision that made council navigators look like children. Pilot. Taiyang led reconnaissance wings that appeared deep in council space, mapped strategic installations, and vanished before defense forces could respond. His fighters were smaller and faster than anything the Council had encountered. They did not follow predictable flight paths. They did not obey conventional physics as the Council understood them. How are they jumping without FTL drives? Kalth demanded, watching human ships appear and disappear across multiple star systems. Our sensors show no quantum engine signatures, because they are not using our technology, a Kryn scientist replied, studying the data frantically. They developed something completely different. Something we have never seen before. Navigator Hannah coordinated the reconnaissance missions from her station on Mars. She had never left the solar system before. But now her fingers danced across holographic controls, guiding hundreds of ships through wormholes with split-second timing. The Council's massive. Slow-moving fleets could not track targets that simply disappeared and reappeared. Light years away, Do-Yan's strategies were being implemented perfectly. The Council species fought with honor codes, with announced attacks and formal declarations. Humanity had no such restrictions. They gathered intelligence, identified weaknesses, and struck where it hurt most, all while the Council struggled to understand how a species trapped in one star system for 25 years could suddenly be everywhere at once. 3 days after the barrier fell, a Kryn battle group decided to teach humanity a lesson. General Kalth personally led 50 warships toward Mars. Intending to destroy the shipyards and cripple human production, they never reached Mars. Captain Jinho commanded the stealth defense fleet that intercepted them. The Kryn ships suddenly went dark, all systems failing simultaneously. They drifted in space, helpless, as human vessels surrounded them. Jinho's transmission to Kalth was courteous but firm. Your power systems have been shut down using technology we developed from the barrier you imprisoned us with. Your ships are intact. Your crews are unharmed. You can have power back when you retreat to your own territory. You have 1 hour to decide. Kelth, sitting in the dark on his dead flagship, felt something the Kryn Empire had not experienced in 3,000 years. Genuine fear. The footage of 50 Kryn warships drifting helplessly in space spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The message was clear. Humanity could have destroyed them. Chose not to, but could do it anytime they wanted. Velthar realized his terrible mistake. We did not contain them. We gave them time to surpass us. More revelations followed. Engineer Hyenwoo's reactor designs were analyzed by council scientists who could not believe what they were seeing. The efficiency was impossible by their understanding of physics. Dr. Yuna's energy systems drew power from sources the council had never thought to tap. The Ashen Coalition, seeing an opportunity, sent their own diplomatic mission to Earth. Unlike the arrogant Kryn, they came with humility. "We acknowledge our role in your exile," the Ashen ambassador said to Minho. "We were wrong to fear you. We ask not for mercy, but for the chance to make amends." Minho considered this carefully. Finally, he announced what would become known as the Soul Accords. Any species that wanted human assistance or technology would need to acknowledge Earth's sovereignty, pay reparations for the forced exile, and agree to mutual respect treaties. "We are not joining your council," Minho declared. "We are offering you a chance to join ours." Yashin agreed immediately. Within days, 6 other species signed the accords. They were smaller species, ones that had been dominated by the Kryn Empire for centuries. They saw in humanity something they had lost: the will to challenge authority, to stand up to those who claimed superiority through age rather than merit. The Kryn Empire refused to sign. Velthor, driven by pride and fear, convinced the Emperor that humanity was bluffing. "They have tricks and surprises, but they cannot sustain a real war against an empire our size." Minho received the Kryn rejection while standing on the lunar monument, surrounded by the names of those who died during the exile. Gu stood beside him. "We still do not understand," she said. "Then we teach them," Minho replied. "Not with words. With actions." He activated his communicator. "Tai Yang, you are cleared for Operation Reminder. Show them what we built while they forgot about us. Across the galaxy, in every major Kryn military installation, in every shipyard and command center, human stealth ships appeared. They did not fire weapons. They did not need to. They simply demonstrated that they could appear anywhere, anytime, without warning or detection. The message was received. The Kryn Empire could not defend its own territory against an enemy that could strike from nowhere and vanish before retaliation arrived. On Earth, in universities and research centers, in military academies and engineering facilities, young humans watched the galaxy finally see what they had become. They had grown up in isolation, cut off from the stars, told they were too dangerous to be trusted. Now the galaxy understood the truth. Humanity was not dangerous because they were violent. They were dangerous because when you gave them a problem, they solved it. When you trapped them, they broke free. When you tried to make them weak, they became strong. The Galactic Council had exiled Earth, thinking they were preventing a threat. Instead, they had created exactly what they feared most: a humanity with something to prove in 25 years to prepare. The Soul Accords changed everything. Within 2 months of the barrier falling, 12 species had signed agreements with humanity. They paid reparations in resources, technology, databases, and formal apologies. In return, they received something the Galactic Council could never provide: genuine terror. Dr. Chai Yung led the humanitarian missions to Ashen worlds. At 31 years old, she was part of the generation that grew up during the exile, never knowing aliens as anything but distant enemies who had trapped humanity. Now she walked through Ashen hospitals, teaching their doctors how to use medical technology that human scientists had developed in isolation. This scanner can detect cellular abnormalities a week before they develop into disease. Ka Yung explained to an elderly Ashen physician, "We built it because we had to learn to do everything ourselves. No alien trade, no imported equipment, just human ingenuity." The Ashen doctor examined the device with wonder. We have had diagnostic tools for centuries, but nothing this precise. How did you advance so far in just 25 years? Che-Yun smiled sadly. You gave us motivation. Every human who worked on this remembered the friends and family we lost during the forced evacuation. People who died because we were cut off from galactic medicine. We promised ourselves we would never be that helpless again. On 3 ashen worlds, suffering from energy shortages, Engineer Hunwoo supervised the installation of human-designed reactors. These planets had been impoverished by the war, their infrastructure crumbling. Within weeks of receiving the reactors, lights came back on in cities that had been dark for months. Why help us? An ashen governor asked Hunwoo. We voted for your exile. We abandoned you. Hunwoo looked at the city sprawling below them, now glowing with renewed energy. Because we are not the council. We do not punish species for past mistakes. You signed the accords. You acknowledged your error. That is enough. But humanity's mercy was not unlimited, and it was never naive. Strategist Oyan made sure every species understood that cooperation was a choice. And so was conflict. When a Kryn battle group attempted to attack the Mars shipyards, Navigator Hannah was ready. She had spent weeks plotting contingency plans for this exact scenario. The moment Kryn ships entered the solar system, she activated a response that had been prepared months in advance. Wormholes opening, her tactical officer reported. Fleet positioning perfect. All squadrons report ready. The Kryn expected to face stationary defenses. Instead, 200 human warships materialized around them in a perfect sphere. Appearing through Hannah's precisely coordinated wormhole network, the Kryn found themselves surrounded, outmaneuvered, completely trapped. Captain Jin-Ho commanded the defensive response from his flagship Retribution. He kept his voice calm as he transmitted to the Kryn commander. You have entered human space with hostile intent. Your shields are being analyzed. Your weapons are being tracked. Your command codes are being decrypted. You have 17 minutes before we finish compiling a complete tactical profile of your fleet. I suggest you use that time to retreat. The Kryn commander, a veteran of 100 battles, looked at his tactical display and felt his confidence crumble. The human ships were not just surrounding them. They were scanning every system, learning every weakness, adapting in real time. He could see his own security protocols being broken down layer by layer on his monitors. If we attack, the Kryn commander asked. Then we demonstrate what we have learned, Jin-Ho replied simply. The Kryn fleet retreated, but Jin-Ho made sure the engagement was recorded from every angle. The footage was broadcast across the galaxy within hours. 53 Kryn warships, some of the most advanced vessels in Council space. Running from a force half their size, the message was clear. Attacking humanity was no longer a question of honor or military might. It was simply stupid. Admiral Minho ensured the tactical data was shared with every species that had signed the Soul Accords. This is what happened when they tested us. This is what will happen to anyone who breaks our agreements. We do not start fights, but we finish them. The Galactic War began to shift. Species that had allied with the Kryn started reconsidering their positions. The Ashen Coalition, bolstered by human technology and medical support, pushed back against Kryn forces. Other species, seeing humanity's power and fairness, quietly began diplomatic communications with Earth. Velthor watched his empire's dominance crumbling. For 3,000 years, the Kryn had been the galaxy's supreme power. Now, within months of humanity's return, everything was falling apart. Species that had served the Kryn for centuries were signing treaties with Earth instead. We must destroy them, Velthor insisted in the Imperial Council chambers. Launch a full assault. Commit everything. With what? General Kelth asked bitterly. We cannot track their ships. We cannot defend our installations. They appear and disappear at will. They have technology we do not understand. And every time we attack them, they broadcast our humiliation across the galaxy. They are one species. Velthor shouted. We are an empire of 9 worlds and 40 colonies. They are one species that spent 25 years preparing for this exact scenario, Kalth countered. While we grew comfortable in our power, they built weapons specifically designed to counter our tactics. While we followed ancient traditions, they innovated without restriction. We created our own worst enemy and gave them decades to grow stronger. The truth was bitter, but undeniable. The exile had backfired completely. Dr. Yuna's latest breakthrough made the situation even more dire for the Council. She had been studying quantum mechanics and energy manipulation for years. Now she unveiled something that terrified every scientist who understood its implications. A weapon that could tear holes in space-time itself. She presented it to Admiral Minho in a private demonstration. A small device, no larger than a briefcase, created a sphere of absolute destruction where matter simply ceased to exist, torn apart at the quantum level. This is just the prototype, Yuna explained. Scaled up, it could destroy a planet, or a star, or an entire fleet in seconds. Minho stared at the device with a mixture of awe and horror. Have you told anyone else about this? Only you. I thought you should decide what to do with the information. Minho was silent for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would define humanity's approach to galactic politics. We will tell everyone. Not the technical details, but the fact that we have it. Let the Council understand that we could end this war in a day if we chose to. But we are choosing not to. The announcement sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Humanity possessed weapons capable of destroying entire star systems, but was offering peace instead. The contrast with the Council's behavior could not have been more stark. Why would they reveal such capability if they do not intend to use it? The Ashen Coalition leader asked Chai Yung during a medical supply delivery. Because we want you to understand that when we offer peace, it is not because we are weak, Chai Yung replied. It is because we choose to be better than those who exiled us. More species began signing the Soul Accords. The benefits were too obvious to ignore. Human technology was superior in almost every field. Human medicine saved millions. Human reactors provided unlimited clean energy. And unlike the Kryn Empire, which demanded tribute and obedience, humanity asked only for respect and cooperation. The Galactic Council fractured. Species that had worked together for thousands of years now found themselves on opposite sides. Some begged for human protection from Kryn aggression. Others, proud and stubborn, refused to acknowledge that a young species had surpassed them. Velthor became increasingly isolated in his own government. The Kryn Emperor, seeing the writing on the wall, quietly opened diplomatic channels with Earth through intermediaries. But Velthar, whose career had been built on the exile of humanity, could not accept defeat. He planned a final, desperate gambit. A strike force would attack Earth directly, using weapons banned by galactic convention. Biological agents designed to devastate human populations. If humanity died, their technology and power died with them. The plan was betrayed by a Kryn officer who had grown disgusted with his government's actions. The intelligence reached Doyan within hours of the strike force launching. They are targeting Earth itself, Doyan reported to Minho. Not military installations. Civilian populations. They are planning genocide. Minho's face became stone. How long until they arrive? 6 hours. They are using a backdoor route through neutral space. Show them what happens when they threaten our home. Pilot Taiyang led the interception. His squadron appeared through wormholes directly in the path of the Kryn strike force. The battle lasted for minutes. The Kryn ships, designed for bombardment rather than ship-to-ship combat, were torn apart by fighters that moved faster and hit harder than anything they had. Trained against Taiyan captured Velthor's flagship intact. The ambassador who had condemned humanity to exile now sat in a human detention cell, watching his empire crumble. When Minho came to see him, Velthor expected execution or torture. Instead, Minho sat down across from him calmly. You tried to genocide us because you were afraid of us, Minho said quietly. And you were right to be afraid. Not because we would destroy you, but because we would prove that your empire's power was built on fear rather than merit. Velthor asked. Give you a choice, Minho replied. Execution, which would make you a martyr, or service, teaching the galaxy about the consequences of fear-based decisions. You will spend the rest of your life explaining to every species how the exile failed, how your arrogance created your own defeat. Velthor closed his eyes. The humiliation would be worse than death, but he would live, and he would serve as a permanent reminder of what happened when power was used without wisdom. The war ended not with a grand battle, but with quiet surrenders. One by one, the species that had fought for years laid down their arms and approached Earth seeking terms. The galactic economy was in ruins. Entire sectors were devastated. Billions had died. And in the center of it all stood humanity, the species everyone had tried to contain. Now holding the keys to peace, Admiral Minho stood in what had once been the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Station. The 47 seats remained, but now they were filled with different faces. Representatives from 23 species sat together, not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals in the Soul Collective. "This is not the Council Reborn," Minho announced to the assembled delegates. "This is something new. Here, power is not measured by the age of your civilization or the size of your empire. It is measured by your contribution to our shared future." The Ashen Coalition leader spoke first. "We propose full integration of our medical systems with human hospitals. Our people are already benefiting from Dr. Che Young's training programs. We wish to expand this partnership." Around the room, other species offered their own contributions. The Velth, masters of agriculture, proposed joint farming initiatives to feed worlds devastated by war. The Quen, brilliant mathematicians, asked to work alongside human physicists. The Krell, whose crystal technology had powered galactic communications for millennia, wanted to learn from Dr. Suman's wormhole networks. It was cooperation born not from dominance, but from mutual respect. Everyone had something to offer. Everyone had something to gain. In a smaller chamber, Velthar faced trial for his attempt at human genocide. But the trial was not what he expected. Instead of vengeful humans demanding his execution, he faced a panel of judges from 6 different species, including his own Kryn people. Minho testified not about the attack itself, but about the exile and its consequences. Ambassador Velthor believed he was protecting the galaxy. He was wrong, but he acted on genuine fear. That fear costs millions of lives, human and otherwise. But executing him changes nothing. Making him understand, making him teach others, that creates something valuable. The verdict was service, as Minho had proposed. Velthar would spend the rest of his life traveling the galaxy, giving lectures about the dangers of isolationism and fear-based policy. He would visit schools and universities, talking to young beings about how his arrogance had led to catastrophe. It was a punishment perfectly designed to hurt a proud Kryn diplomat. But it was also educational. Velthar's first lecture, given on his own homeworld, was watched by billions across the galaxy. "Stood in the council chambers 25 years ago," Velthar said, his voice heavy with regret, "and I convinced you that humanity was a threat. I showed you their wars, their aggression, their rapid expansion. I did not show you their compassion, their innovation, their capacity for growth. I saw what I wanted to see because I was afraid of losing Kryn's supremacy on Earth." Dr. Yunji watched the broadcast from her office on Mars. She was 82 now, her hands shaking slightly as she held a cup of tea. The laboratory around her was filled with alien and human scientists working side by side, something she had dreamed of during those lonely years on Europa. "Do you think he means it?" a young Ashen researcher asked her. "I think he has learned that fear is expensive," Yunji replied. "Whether that makes him genuinely sorry or just wise, I do not know. But the result is the same. The galaxy is learning from his mistakes." The transformation continued rapidly on Mars. Engineer Hyunwoo supervised the construction of a massive training facility where human and alien engineers studied together. His Prometheus reactors now powered installations on 40 worlds across 7 sectors. "The Kryn always kept their technology secret," a Quen engineer told Hunhua during a tour. "They sold us inferior versions and charged massive fees. You share your best designs freely." "Because we remember what it felt like to be cut off from knowledge," Hyunwoo replied. We will never do to others what was done to us. Dr. Yuna's energy research advanced even further. She discovered that the quantum principles behind the exile barrier could be used not as a prison, but as a shield. Young civilizations could request barriers around their systems, giving them time to develop without interference until they were ready for galactic contact. We were forced into isolation, Yuna explained during the proposal presentation. But some species might benefit from choosing it temporarily. A shield instead of a cage. Protection instead of punishment. The proposal passed unanimously. Within a year, 4 developing civilizations had requested temporary barriers, knowing they could lower them whenever they wished. Humanity monitored the barriers but never interfered. The galaxy was learning new ways to handle young species. Pilot Taiyang, now a commander at age 28, led the first joint human-alien patrol squadron. His wing included Ashen, Quinn, and even 2 young Kryn pilots, who had grown disgusted with their empire's old ways. My father fought against your species in the war, one of the Kryn pilots told Taiyang during a training exercise. And now we fly together, Taiyang replied. That is progress. Navigator Hannah commanded traffic control for the entire Sol Collective, coordinating thousands of ships through her wormhole network. She was 27 years old and had more responsibility than most admirals in the old council. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if they had accepted us? A junior officer asked her one day. Hannah considered the question while watching ships from a dozen species move peacefully through her network. If they had accepted us, we would have been like them, comfortable, complacent. The exile forced us to become something better. I cannot say I am grateful for the pain it caused, but I am proud of what we built from it. Strategist Do Yan, now a senior member of the Sol Collective Council, worked on maintaining peace rather than planning wars. His tactical genius was applied to trade routes, resource distribution, and diplomatic negotiations. He was 34 and had never fired a shot in anger, yet his strategies had won a war. The old council ruled through fear and tradition, Do Yan said during a policy debate. We must rule through merit and mutual benefit. The moment we start acting like them, we become them. On Luna, the memorial wall expanded, not to add more human names, but to include all who had died in the Galactic War. Millions of names from dozens of species, a reminder that conflict costs everyone. Admiral Minho, now 73 years old, visited the memorial often. Commander Jiwoo usually accompanied him. They had served together for over 40 years, from the humiliation in the council chambers to the rebuilding of galactic civilization. We did it, Jiwoo said quietly, looking at the names. We proved them wrong. Did more than that, Minho replied. We built something better than what they had, not through conquest, but through example. On the 25th anniversary of the barrier's fall, a ceremony was held on Earth. Representatives from every member species of the Sol Collective attended. Dr. Chow Yung, now director of the Interspecies Medical Institute, gave a speech about cooperation. Engineer Hyunwoo demonstrated new reactor technology developed jointly by human and Velth scientists. But the most powerful moment came when a young Kryn student asked Admiral Minho a question. Hey, sir, do you hate us? My people exiled yours. We tried to destroy you. Do you hate the Kryn? The room fell silent. Minho looked at the young being, seeing genuine fear and hope in equal measure. No, Minho said firmly. I hate what your leaders did. I hate the fear and arrogance that led to the exile, but you are not your leaders. You are standing here asking hard questions, trying to build a better future. That is not something to hate. That is something to encourage. He turned to address the entire gathering. The Galactic Council exiled Earth thinking we were a threat. They were right, but not in the way they imagined. We are a threat to tyranny, to arrogance, to any force that believes might makes right, that old civilizations deserve power simply because they are old. We prove that isolation does not weaken the determined, it forges them. Strategist Do Yan added his own thoughts. The council thought they were protecting the galaxy from us. Instead, they gave us exactly what we needed to protect the galaxy from itself. They gave us time, motivation, and a common goal. They united humanity in a way nothing else could have. Ceremony ended with the unveiling of a new monument on Earth, placed directly across from the old council headquarters building that had been converted into the Sol Collective Administration Center. The monument showed two hands reaching toward each other, one human, one alien, neither above the other. The inscription read simply, "From exile to example, from isolation to integration, from fear to future." Navigator Hannah piloted the first joint expedition beyond the known galaxy. Her ship, the New Horizon, carried a crew of 15 species, all working together to explore regions no one had mapped before. They went not as conquerors, but as explorers. Not to dominate, but to discover, as they crossed beyond the edge of charted space. Hannah looked back at the galaxy they were leaving behind. The barrier that had once imprisoned humanity was gone, replaced by networks of cooperation spanning hundreds of worlds. "What are we looking for out here?" her ashen co-pilot asked. "The same thing humanity was looking for 25 years ago," Hannah replied. "A place in something greater than ourselves. The difference is, now we are bringing that place with us instead of searching for it." Back on Earth, in classrooms and laboratories, in shipyards and hospitals, young humans and aliens learned together. They studied the exile not as a tragedy, but as a lesson. Not about human exceptionalism, but about what any species could achieve when properly motivated. The story of the exile became required teaching across the Sol Collective, not to glorify humanity, but to demonstrate what happened when fear governed policy, when assumptions replaced understanding, when isolation was chosen instead of integration. Admiral Minho retired at 75, handing command to a new generation that had known nothing but cooperation. His final act was to visit Velthor, now an old Kryn, giving his 1000th lecture on the mistakes of the past. "Do you ever regret not executing me?" Velthor asked. "Every day you teach someone about the cost of fear, you prove that mercy was the right choice," Minho replied. "You have saved more lives through education than I ever did through military action." Velthor nodded slowly. "I spent 3,000 years believing my civilization was superior. It took a species a fraction of our age to show me that superiority comes not from longevity, but from adaptability. Not from power, but from wisdom." Minho left Velthor to his students and returned to Earth, to the memorial wall, where he stood one final time among the names of those who had not lived to see what their sacrifice built. "We proved them wrong," he said to the empty air, "to the memory of every human who died during the exile. We proved that humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our tactics. It is our absolute refusal to give up, our determination to turn every obstacle into an opportunity. They tried to cage us, and we built a forge instead." The Galactic Council had exiled Earth to contain a threat. They created one instead, but not the threat they imagined. They created a civilization that would challenge every assumption, question every tradition, and ultimately rebuild galactic society on foundations of merit rather than fear. It was, indeed, a very big mistake. But it was also, in the end, the best thing that could have happened to the galaxy.